Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. This week, we're looking at the idea of hearing messages from the non-physical. Have you ever heard the call of God or a message from your higher self, or the voice of the great mother of Gaia? If you have, when do you think you heard that call the most clearly? When do you think you heard the message the most fully? We're looking at that question this week. And as usual, I'm using my week ahead spread. And if you've been here before, and you've been here the last 2 weeks, you know that this spread is going to be gorgeous because the cards are beautiful. So let's take a look at that spread. So was I lying? Isn't this spread gorgeous? It's gorgeous because the cards, the artwork on the cards is beautiful, and they flow together, they work together, they speak to each other beautifully, I believe. And if you're curious about these decks, at the end of the video, there will be information about the decks and the creators. And as always, there will be links below if you want to go purchase one or all of these decks on your own. So friends, I showed you the full layout. And if you've been here before, you know this, but this layout has a specific format. Yeah? The 3 cards in the center are the main message of the spread. And the 4 groups of cards around the sides answer a question. Now, the central cards are oracle cards. The cards on the outside are tarot cards answering a question being given by a special deck called inquiry cards. So, what we will do this week, as always, is we'll look at that central set of 3 cards and take a look at that message, which is the primary message of this spread. These 3 cards are very interesting, I believe. They speak to a very interesting trajectory, in my opinion. The first card is abundance. And we see a woman holding a basket and one hand open to receive. And what is she receiving? She's receiving a single flower. So it's from this card that I got the idea of the initial receiving, the posture of receiving, the attitude of receiving. And then the next card we have God Speaks. Now, in this deck, the creator is calling the non-physical God, which is the same term that I would use. I'm very happy with the word God, but it's just a word. Yeah, you can use any word we want. Allah, Brahman, Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Gaia, Universal Consciousness, whatever we want to call it. Yeah, it's all, those names are all describing, I believe, the same thing. So hearing, well, not hearing, but the speaking. Yeah, the speaking. So first we prepare, or we are receptive, and then we get the speaking from non-physical. And then the third card is courage, which is in a trajectory, yeah, preparation, central action, and then following action, courage. Why is courage part of this trajectory? Why do we go from abundance to courage? Isn't that interesting? Well, let's take a look at the trajectory. So again, abundance, we have a woman holding flowers, and one hand is open to receive another flower. And you see that this is not an ordinary flower. Flowers don't usually float like that. So this is where I get the idea of being receptive to spirit. And you'll notice that I'm doing this, but in the card, it's actually her left hand that is open. The left hand, the receptive hand, yeah, is open, receptive to this mystical rose. Again, I ask you, have you ever heard a message from non-physical? When did that happen, if you have? Was it at a time when you were desperate for information? Was it at a time when you were frightened or anxious or desperate? Or was it at a time when you were relaxed, calm, curious perhaps feeling love, perhaps feeling joy? I believe the time that we are most receptive to information, to messages, to the speaking from non-physical is when we are the most open. And the most open emotional states are love, joy, well-being, awareness, and abundance, feeling abundance. That's kind of part of well-being, isn't it? So, if we want to hear the voice of spirit, if we want to hear the call from non-physical, the call to action perhaps, or the call to become, what kind of messages are there? I've heard several kinds of messages from my own experience and from others. There are the calls to become something else, to transform. There are the calls to action, to do something out in the world or for another. There are calls for introspection, yeah? The call to move inward for our own development or for our own personal understanding. It could be a call to listen more carefully to more messages. But there are several kinds of calls. And I think the time we are most receptive and most able to hear the call, the message from non-physical, is when we are open and feeling abundant. When we are feeling the abundance of who we are and where we are. Because when we are feeling anxious, angry, frightened, perhaps unworthy, or feeling depressed, feeling powerless, those are times when we have closed ourselves off. And it takes a much louder shout from non-physical to break through those walls that we have put up around us. Now, non-physical can do it. There are many instances when people hear the voice of non-physical very clearly in the midst of their panic, for example. However, the time we hear that message the most clearly is in our abundance, our feeling of abundance, our feeling of love and joy and well-being and awareness. So at those times, we hear the most clearly and the most fully. What do we hear? We hear God speaking. We hear the voice of non-physical. Yeah? And in that card, what do we see? We see a very human-looking figure, which you could interpret in many ways. In some senses, that human figure has a very Judeo-Christian iconography to me. Now, because there is the triangle behind the head, which implies a trinity, which is very Christian, and that's my reading from a very Christian upbringing. But there are other ways to read that. It could just be a human being, perhaps sitting in meditation, perhaps ready to receive. And beneath the human, there is a nautilus shell. Did you notice that? There is the shape of a nautilus shell. Yeah? That shell that goes like this and gets larger. And some people use as an example of the Fibonacci sequence, if you're familiar with sacred geometry. So, we hear God, God speaks. Non-physical speaks. When does non-physical speak, do you think? Do you think God or our angels or our higher selves are just sitting back in the background waiting for us to be ready? Should I speak now? Should I say something now? No, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to hear me now. How about now? I don't know. Probably not. No, I think I'll wait a little bit more. No, they're not ready. I don't think Spirit does that. I think Spirit is speaking to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of every year. And the difference is how able we are to receive. And perhaps those moments when we think we heard the voice through our panic, through our distress, what actually happened was, in the midst of our panic, of our distress, we give up. We give up for a split second. We let loose of the barriers that we're holding up around us. We let loose of them, and at that moment, finally, we get to hear the voice. We get to receive the message. I think that's probably the case for those times when we think we heard the message in the middle of our resistance. It was just that split second of releasing it, having no other option but just to let go. And then we hear the voice. We hear the message. So, the message is always coming to us. And the Nautilus is a perfect symbol for that. The Nautilus is traditionally a symbol of perfection and beauty. And the voice, the message of non-physical is always a message of perfection, of beauty. It's the perfect message at the perfect time. And it's a beautiful message because it's a message of evolution and creation and growth. The Nautilus is a symbol of strength as well for some people, which is perfect, I believe, because we need strength to move after we've heard the message, after we received the call. The Nautilus is a symbol of spiritual growth, which is perhaps the reason for getting a call or hearing a message is for us to grow spiritually, to evolve. And it's the symbol of creation and, believe it or not, movement. Which, as I said, which has already come through me. That idea of the voice being beautiful because it is creative, because it does move us forward in our evolution, in our growth, in our expansion. The messages from non-physical are for our benefit, for our expansion, for our evolution, for our growth, and for our movement forward in life. Because not moving, stagnation is death, not the death of the body, death of the spirit. And that cannot happen. That does not happen. Spirit is always expanding. That death is, I believe, impossible. And so, the message is a message of movement, of expansion. And because it is a message of evolution, of expansion, what do we need to be able to follow that message, to follow that call? We need that next card, which is an archer. Yeah? The person has their bow and arrow ready, their sight, it looks like their sight is aimed. And this was a little bit of a surprising card for me in this spread, because it at first glance looks a little violent. My first thought is, what? God's telling me to go out and hunt? I don't think so. So this card, this message, is not about hunting. It's actually not about bows and arrows. It's not that kind of courage. It's the courage to take aim. To take aim in the direction we are going to move, the direction we are going to evolve and expand. Have you ever practiced archery before? Or any kind of shooting activity. Let's include guns. I personally don't like guns, but the concept is the same. If you've experienced shooting, target shooting with a gun, or with a bow and arrow, or perhaps another form of weapon, for example, probably you will have learned a technique where you stop, you pause, and you focus. You don't, the best marksmen, the best archers are not focused entirely on that point out there. They're focused here as well. Because you're not moving the arrow forward, you're releasing it to move forward as it naturally will, without interference from you. You put it in its place, and then you're not pushing it forward, you're letting it fly. And so to prepare for that, what do? You focus on your body. You focus on your breath. You focus on being relaxed and poised. Yeah, sure, there needs to be muscles engaged, of course. But not your entire body. If your entire body is tense, you're going to release with unsteadily. Now, you're going to release like this. So, the purpose of the archer in this card is that, yes, we have our eye on the prize, if you will, and on ourselves, on our breath, that we're breathing easily, that we're allowing a breath to flow in and flow out. We're not clenching our breath. Yeah, we breathe in, we're grounded, we're centered, we're oxygenated, and we might allow the breath to stay. We don't want to force it out. We allow the breath to stay as we release. Now we're supremely aware of our breath and what point in our breath we are the most stable. And we are relaxed. We're aware of our entire bodies. We're relaxed. We're poised. We're not relaxed like this. We're relaxed and poised. And that is courage. That is courage. Being aware of who you are, where you are, open and poised and ready to move forward. Courage is not struggling forward in the face of fear. True courage is being open to the experience, trusting yourself, trusting the movement forward, being aware of your centeredness and aware of your breath and poised and ready to move. So to be able to follow through with the messages we get from a non-physical, from God, from Brahman, from the Great Spirit, from the Divine Mother, from Gaia, from the universal consciousness, to move with that message, to act upon those messages, to follow that call, we need that kind of courage. And the kind of courage we want is in that same open state, the state of the openness that we had when we felt abundant. That state of openness that is poised and ready to go. There might be awareness of some fear in the periphery, but we want to be poised and ready to go. In that case and that time, we are following the call. We are reacting to the message. We're acting upon the message that we receive. So friends, again I ask you, have you heard that call? Have you heard a message from non-physical? Have you been able to act upon that message? Does this make sense to you? Living an intentional life, this is what it's about. It's being able to stay open in our abundance as much as possible, to hear those messages, hear that call, and remain open, centered, poised, and ready to flow with the powerful flow of intention. realizing there will be times when we're knocked off our center. There will be times like that, certainly. And we can be grateful for those times, because at those times we learn a lot. We learn a lot about ourselves and about the environment. We learn what we like, what we don't like, what we want, what we don't want. As long as we don't identify ourselves with that story of being knocked down, I am not the knocked down one. I'm the one who experienced being knocked off center and have found my balance again. This is not trying to forget or put away or dismiss or ignore or hide those times when we're knocked off our center, when we're closed off from fear or panic or anger or powerlessness. We want to be aware of all of those things and integrate those things that we learned from that, and open ourselves again to the call of spirit, the message from non-physical. So friends, we've got 4 questions ready for this central spread. Let's take a look at that first question. This question is wonderful. What needs attention? And because we're talking about attention, right? In our abundance, being attentive to the voice of spirit, the call of the non-physical. So what needs attention? Our first card is, of course, the High Priestess. What could be a more perfect card for this? The High Priestess is the one who is some people call her the gatekeeper. I call her our guide. Our guide to non-physical and our guide to our unconscious, because she is also rising up from the pool of our unconscious. And it's through that unconscious that we receive, I believe, most of our messages, most of our call from non-physical. It comes through the unconscious, more than it comes through our ears or our eyes. Although we do get messages that mirror contents in our unconscious, and we figure something out from that, certainly. But most of that call, I believe, is from the unconscious, where we are the most connected to non-physical. And the High Priestess is our guide to all of that. To me, she is our guide. She is the embodiment of moon energy in human form, if you will. She is she's the archetype, the human archetype of moon energy and water energy. She is the archetype of intuition, and it's through our intuition that we make sense of and we understand the call. She is the guide for sacred knowledge. She is the guide of the divine feminine. Now the receptive, the divine receptive. And she's the archetype of the subconscious mind to me. And so that's what needs our attention. Yeah? Our attention wants to be on sacred knowledge, on the knowledge that we have within us and that we have connection to through our subconscious. Our intuition speaks the voice, speaks the language of the non-physical. And it translates the voice and the language of non-physical so that we can understand it a little bit better. Perhaps not as clearly as we understand the voice on the radio or on YouTube, but better than we would have understood it without the translation of our subconscious symbology and archetypes and voice. The High Priestess is the symbol of perceptivity to me. Differently perceptive, not the perception of our eyes and our ears, perhaps, or our fingers, our skin, perhaps, or our nose and our mouths. Otherly perceptive. non-physically perceptive, symbolically perceptive. And that's where we want to put our attention, on those differently perceptive talents that we each and everyone have. And then the next card. Oh, and I'm sorry, with the High Priestess. Did you notice in the card, what do we have? We have her head being a moon. And she's holding a rainbow. That is so unusual. Yeah? This High Priestess is manifesting a rainbow. She manifests with the knowledge that she has, with the information that she has. As she guides us, she manifests a spectrum of light. And that's where we want to put our attention. There's a spectrum there. And the spectrum, I think, is an important clue. The next card is the Queen of Coral for the Pholarchos Tarot. In a standard Rider-Waite Smith deck, it would be the Queen of Cups. Also a water card, right? So the Queen of Cups is the compassionate one. She is the caring, nurturing one. Not the nurturing one of the Queen of Pentacles, like here, eat some more. Here, let me wrap you in a blanket kind of nurturing, but the emotionally nurturing, the emotionally supportive one. The warm, tender, empathetic one. And that's another place that we want to put our attention, because the more caring, the more nurturing we are, the more we are like the non-physical, the more we are like our divine creator, whatever name we want to put on that, the more we are like universal consciousness. So to be able to commune with universal consciousness, with the divine creator, we want to emulate the creator as best we can, and that is partly the Queen of Cups. We want to put attention on our nurturing ability. And she's also another card of intuition, of intuitive flow. So we get that idea emphasized once more. Attention on our intuitive flow. And when our attention is there, we are more receptive to the voice, to the call. And you'll see that she's got her familiar. Yeah? Some of our animals can be wonderful associate messengers of the divine. They can help us, one, open up again so that we do feel our nurturing, caring selves once more. When we're closed down, we pet our animals, our furry friends, or our feathered friends. We pet our animal companions, or our insect companions, if you like beetles, for example, or tarantulas. We pet our non-human companions, our familiars, and we open. A lot of our resistance melts in the presence of our non-human companions. And so then we're also, again, more receptive to our intuition, to the voice, to the call of non-physical. So what needs attention? Our presence, our connection with our unconscious, with our intuition, and each other, our caring and loving attitude toward those around us. Let's take a look at the second question. So we heard about what we should be paying attention to. Now we want to know what we value. What do I value? What do you value? Now here we're not thinking entirely of cash coin, Bitcoin. Now we're not talking about that kind of value. We're thinking more broadly, what do I value? And we have two answers here as well, as usual. One is the dancer, water, which in the Rider-Waite Smith deck would be the Ace of Cups. And we also have Trail of Spirits, which in the Rider-Waite Smith system would be the Knight of Pentacles. And we have two different things, two different receptive elements, water and earth. So again, we're focusing on our receptivity here. We're still focusing on our receptivity, like the abundance card. And the first thing, what do I value in the Ace of Cups? I value, first of all, love. Yeah, that first spark of love. New relationships. I value those. They're exciting, they're titillating, they give energy, they give movement forward. They begin that honeymoon state, that first spark of love, whether it's romantic love or platonic love or any other form of love. There are many forms of love, right? It's also the card, the Ace of Cups is also the card of intuition. That first spark, that first ping of intuition. And in this card, what do we see? We see a dancer dancing on the surface of water. And her reflection is the cup. Now this dancer's reflection is the cup, the Ace of Cups. So we see that this dancer, it looks like a feminine form, but it doesn't have to be feminine, it doesn't have to be female. Yeah? This dancer's form is the cup. We are the cups, dancing on our subconscious. Dancing on our subconscious from which our intuition comes. Dancing on our subconscious from which our compassion and our feelings of abundance can arise. Now that ace is that first spark, the beginnings. And we value those beginnings. We value those. And if we're attentive, we will nurture those sparks so that they grow and blossom into many more cups. But we value that first start, that beginning, because it's exciting and it's interesting and it's new. And the next thing we value, sort of on the other end of a spectrum, if you will, is the Knight of Pentacles, the card of hard work, the card of productivity and methodical work, doing tasks, step by step by step. I'm not trying to accomplish everything in one fell swoop, but taking the steps, doing the work, the routine. A rather Virgo card. Now, the Knight of Pentacles, we value that, whether we are aware of it or not. Sure, it's exciting to get everything done at once and quickly and wow, I'm done. That's exciting, but we value our ability to keep moving forward. We value our productivity. We value our stability, our rational stability. We value our reliability and our routines as well. Even a person who says that they are bored with routines values having a routine of change, of newness, for example. Does that make sense? So we value both things. We value the first sparks, the intuitive hits, the first loves, and we value working steadily, doing the work, doing the tasks, step by step, not overwhelmed, not burdened, but working step by step. Those are two beautiful things to value and to be open to valuing. And I think in valuing both sides of this experience of life, we are again open to the voice, to the call. When we shut down one or the other, when we shut down our value of routine, or we shut down our value of newness, of change, we're shutting down and we lose some of our capacity to hear, to receive messages. Do you find yourself valuing one more than the other? Do you find yourself valuing the new, the exciting, the new love affair, the new intuitive hit? Or do you find yourself valuing being steady, meditating every day, doing the task, mindfully washing the dishes? Do you find yourself valuing that more? Can you find yourself doing the alchemy, the temperance alchemy, that's my card for the month, by the way, the temperance alchemy of doing both, being both, bringing both together into one experience and creating something new. Let's take a look at that third question. The third question I actually wanted to put first. When I was arranging the spread again for my meditation before doing this video, I accidentally switched to the first and third questions because I like this question the most, I guess. The question is, what's the most loving choice? And I always love this question. Yeah, from what I value, where do I want to put my attention? What do I value? And now I want to make a choice. And what is the most loving choice? The two cards answering that question this time are the Dancer King, which is the King of Cups in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and the Empress, which is the Empress all the way around. Interesting, beautiful, also spectrum of answer. Both of them receptive, I believe. Both of them are receptive in their own ways. Perhaps on a spectrum of creativity. The Dancer King, you see this figure, half coming, rising up from the water, and also rising from the water is my Chinese zodiac sign, a dragon. Love dragons. So, we have a dragon rising with the King of Cups. And the King of Cups is the emotionally balanced one. The one who is able to maintain their balance in the midst of a tumultuous sea, a turbulent sea. The King of Cups is the compassionate one again. The diplomatic and caring one. We can do both. We can be diplomatic. We can communicate diplomatically, behave diplomatically, and care at the same time. Diplomacy does not have to be cold and rational only. Diplomacy can be an emotional connection as well. And that's the side of diplomacy that this card represents. And you see this in this card, the king is stroking this dragon, often thought of as a fiery energy. This dragon, though, is a sea dragon. It's coming up from the sea. So this dragon is a fire within water. And I believe kings are also fire. Some people see kings as air, but I see kings as fire from my studies with Thoth. So, dragon fire in water, king fire in water, and they are communing in the middle of a fairly rough sea. And that's the loving choice. That is the loving choice, to commune, to use the fire within to commune, to care, to share, to provide emotional balance in the middle of some kind of turmoil, if that turmoil is there. So, emotionally receptive, but still active in that receptivity. Receptive of the emotions that other people are expressing, but not being displaced, not being unsettled by those emotions, being able to receive them and to maintain our balance. If we could achieve that, that would be the most loving choice, I believe. And then we have the Empress. I believe one of the most loving cards in the major arcana. The Empress, for me. Now, generally people call her the creator, the creative one, the one of abundance, certainly, the one of nature, perhaps pregnancy, giving birth, and I believe all of those are there. But rather than the giving birth part of pregnancy, I believe it is the pregnancy part. And what do I mean by that? I believe both the Empress and the Emperor are creative elements in the major arcana. They are both creative in different ways. The Emperor is creative in the yin, yang, in the yang area, the going out and doing the work of creation. The Empress is the yin, or the of creation. She is the one who opens space for creation to happen naturally. She's the one who allows fertility to occur. She is the fertility in the sense of holding space for it to happen, holding space for generativity, for generation. And that is also the loving choice, I believe. Being able to hold space for creation to happen naturally. So we pay our attention to intuition, to our nurturing ability. We value our intuition and our compassion, and we hold space for it to grow. We hold space for ourselves to grow, because that is the next step. We hear the call and we have the courage to hold space for our evolution, for our movement forward, for our fertility. So, the most loving choice is to remain balanced, to remain open and compassionate and loving, and to hold space for our growth and for the growth of others. Whatever or whoever those others may be they plants, be they humans, be they animals, be they insects, holding space for the growth and generation of the Empress. That is the combination of a truly loving choice. Let's look at the last question. The last question is, where is my strength? And this relates wonderfully with the oracle card for courage. Now, for courage, we want strength. And as we need strength, or we want strength, to be able to hold space for creation. That's not an easy thing to do, holding space for creation. Ask any mother who is growing a human within her. That takes strength. So where is my strength? We have two answers: Temperance and the Queen of Sparks, which in the Pholarchos Tarot is the Queen of Wands for a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And notice the Temperance card is here. Yeah? My card of the month. The Temperance card is here. Just like I mentioned, there is temperance in the first three questions. There's that flavor, that scent, that fragrance, of that aroma of temperance in those first three sets of answers to the questions. And here it's just blatantly one of the answers: temperance. So where is my strength? My strength is in one, temperance. Temperance, the card of, for some it's balance, for some it's patience, and certainly, yes, our strength is in our patience. Because for one thing, we can't demand that we hear the call from Nonphysical. Our openness to the abundance is a state of patience as well. We want to be patient, not demanding. Okay, I'm open, where's the message? Say something, won't ya? That's not a temperate state to be in. Yeah? Strength. Our strength is in our temperance. It's also in moderation. Yeah? Not going to either extreme, but as Buddha said, the middle path is the way. Now that middle path that the Buddha describes is the card of temperance. It's a card of harmony and healing. We are the strongest when we are harmonious and when we are able to heal ourselves and others. Now, we can't actually heal another person. We can't do the healing action. However, we can hold healing space for the person. We can support another's healing. And that's a powerful thing to do, to be able to support someone else's healing. Some of us think that doctors come and heal us. They don't heal us. Doctors don't heal us. Treatment is not healing us. It's causing the conditions for our healing. And that is all part of temperance. Because medicine is part of alchemy, right? Medicine comes from alchemy, which is part of the temperance card. Alchemy. What is alchemy? It's combining things, merging things, fusing things to create the new. Sometimes extremes. Yeah? We merge ice and fire and we get steam. That's alchemy. We merge perhaps lead and salt and mercury and we get gold. Now, alchemy, transformation. Transformation is also our strength. Our ability to transform is our strength. We are weak when we refuse to transform, to grow. Our strength, where is our strength? Our strength is in our ability to transform, to evolve, to mix things within ourselves and create our new self, as well as to mix things in the world and in spirit and energetically mix things to create something new. And in this card, the creator of the Tarot of the Sheet said that this card was the first card that she created for the deck, the Tarot of the Sheet. And she didn't know she was creating a temperance card at the time. It was originally supposed to be a Christmas card or a Yule card. And this is supposed to be the winter solstice angel. Now that point between the darkening and the lightening. Now that point of transformation and alchemy. The moon and the sun are there. Alchemy. Ice and fire are there. Alchemy. So temperance, it's the alchemy of creation. And then the next card is the Queen of Wands. A fairly balanced card, yeah? The Queen is the water of fire. No, I'm sorry, water of fire. Water of fire. The Queen is water, the suit is fire. Water of fire. So she in herself is alchemy. She is a card of courageousness. Now we want courage. Now, courage. She is that courage. We want to be the Queen of Wands as we do the work of temperance, of alchemy. We want to be our confident and independent selves. We want to be self-assured and determined. That's all part of our strength. Not necessarily aggressive in the angry fighting way, but determined. I am determined that I will change. I am determined that I will grow. I am determined that I will create. Not I'm determined to stop you. I'm determined to make you fail. I'm determined to beat you. But rather, I'm determined to evolve and become and create. She is passionate. And our passion is part of our courage, isn't it? Our passion is part of our strength, in whatever form it takes for you. The naturalness of passion. She is creative and develops creativity. Because her queenness is also a nurturing part of the suit. Yeah? She is creative and she nurtures creativity in others. And as we nurture creativity in others, we also show our strength. That is also a position or a state of open strength, being able to nurture someone else's creativity and not be, what do I want to say? And not be intimidated by someone else's creativity, fearing that we will be outshone, fearing that that our being in the background we will lose attention from other people, perhaps from the divine. But having the strength to be able to nurture someone else's creativity is the Queen of Wands. So what do we get out of this spread? What do you get out of this spread? Now, we want to stay open. We want to stay open and experience abundance as much as possible. And in that state, we can receive message, call from non-physical. Because that non-physical, whatever we want to call that, is always communicating with us. And then we want to be courageous, to be able to move in the direction of the information, the call, the direction that we are given, that we receive. Our attention wants to be on our intuition and on our nurturing of others. We value those first sparks of intuition, of love, and we value our day-to-day routines, especially if we can do them in mindfulness, in that open, abundant feeling. And the most loving choice from this position is to be emotionally balanced and hold space for others' emotions, to show compassion for them, to connect with them, and to hold space for our evolution and the evolution of others. And then we have our strength. Then we can fulfill our strength, our temperance, our ability to do the work of alchemy, and to be creative, and to nurture the creativity of others. And that is living an intentional life. That is living life intentionally. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. Now, in just a moment, there will be, again, information about these decks and the creators if you're curious. And as always, if you feel called, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and hit the alarm. Share with this with someone who you think might be benefited by it. And I'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to hear from you. When have you heard the call from the non-physical? The message from the divine? Have you heard it? What was it? Were you able to act on it, to move with it? What in this description, this reading, resonated with you? I'd love to hear from you. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.